Have you ever found yourself staring at a conversation you know you need to have, but your heart starts racing just thinking about it? Maybe it's with a colleague, a friend, or even someone in your own family. You know the words need to be said, but you're scared they'll come out wrong, or worse, that they'll hurt the other person. If this sounds familiar, take a deep breath. You're not alone, and there is a way to handle these moments with grace and confidence. Here's the truth: difficult conversations aren't the problem. It's how we approach them that makes all the difference. Too often we focus on what we want to say instead of how we want the other person to feel. And that right there is the key. When you shift your mindset from "I need to get my point across" to "I want to help this person understand," everything changes. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about winning or losing, it's about understanding and connection. Now, here's a little trick that works every time. Before you even open your mouth, remind yourself of one thing. The goal isn't to prove who's right or wrong. The goal is to find a solution that leaves both sides feeling respected. Start by listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk, but truly hearing what the other person is saying. Let them share their side without interrupting, without judgment. When people feel heard, their defenses drop, and suddenly the tension in the room begins to fade. Once they've had their say, respond with kindness and clarity. Use phrases like "I understand where you're coming from," or "help me see this from your perspective." These simple words do more than break down walls, they build bridges. They show the other person that you care, that you're not just there to argue, but to find common ground. And here's another powerful tip: always speak from the heart, not the heat of the moment. Anger might feel satisfying in the short term, but it rarely solves anything. Instead, choose your words carefully. Speak softly, calmly, and with purpose. Remember, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. A gentle tone can disarm even the toughest opponent and turn a potential battle into a productive discussion. One more thing: don't forget the power of empathy. Put yourself in their shoes for a moment. What are they feeling? What fears or frustrations might be driving their behavior? When you approach the conversation with compassion, you create space for honesty and trust. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's when real progress happens. So the next time you're faced with a tough conversation, don't shy away from it. Embrace it as an opportunity to grow, to connect, and to make things better. Approach it with respect, listen with an open mind, and speak with sincerity. Do that, and you'll walk away knowing you handled it with grace. And maybe, just maybe, you'll leave the other person feeling a little better too. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what matters most? Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in tough conversations: the power of timing. Have you ever noticed how saying the right thing at the wrong time can completely backfire? Timing isn't just important, it's everything. If someone is stressed, distracted, or emotionally overwhelmed, no matter how well-intentioned your words are, they might not land the way you hope. So before diving into a difficult discussion, take a moment to assess the situation. Is this the best time to bring it up? Are both of you in a place where you can listen and respond thoughtfully? Sometimes waiting for the right moment can make all the difference between a productive conversation and one that ends in frustration. And while we're talking about preparation, here's another tip. Go into the conversation with a solution-oriented mindset. Nobody likes feeling attacked or criticized. So instead of pointing fingers, focus on finding answers together. For example, if you're addressing a recurring issue at work, frame it as a shared challenge rather than assigning blame. You could say something like, "I've noticed we've been running into this problem lately, and I think if we brainstorm some ideas, we can figure out how to move forward more smoothly." This approach shifts the dynamic from confrontational to collaborative, making it easier for everyone involved to stay open-minded. Another powerful tool in handling difficult conversations gracefully is body language. Yes, even in situations where you might not think much about it, nonverbal cues play a huge role in communication. Your tone of voice, facial expressions, and posture can either ease tension or escalate. Picture this: you're sitting across from someone, arms crossed, leaning back in your chair with a frown on your face. Even if your words are calm and measured, your body is sending a very different message, one of defensiveness or disinterest. On the flip side, leaning slightly forward, maintaining gentle eye contact, and keeping your hands relaxed signals that you're engaged and willing to listen. These small adjustments can transform the energy of the entire interaction. Of course, there will be times when emotions run high, no matter how carefully you prepare. That's okay, it's human nature. But what separates graceful communicators from the rest is their ability to stay composed under pressure. When tempers flare, resist the urge to match intensity with intensity. Instead, pause, take a deep breath. Silence can be incredibly powerful in these moments because it gives both parties a chance to regroup and refocus. And when you do speak, keep your voice steady and your words deliberate. Even in the heat of the moment, staying calm demonstrates maturity and respect, which can help de-escalate the situation faster than any argumentative response ever could. Let's also address the importance of clarity. One of the biggest mistakes people make in difficult conversations is beating around the bush. They tiptoe around the issue, hoping the other person will somehow pick up on what they're trying to say without them having to spell it out. But vague hints and indirect comments rarely lead to resolution. They usually just create confusion and frustration. Be clear but kind. If you need to address a specific behavior or decision, state it plainly without exaggeration or unnecessary drama. For instance, instead of saying "you never listen to me," try "I feel unheard when we discuss certain topics, and I'd love to find a way to improve our communication." This approach avoids generalizations and focuses on the real issue without resorting to accusation. While clarity is essential, so is flexibility. No matter how prepared you are, conversations don't always go according to plan. The other person may react differently than you expected, or new information might come to light that changes the context entirely. Being adaptable means staying open to adjusting your approach mid-conversation. Maybe you realize the other person needs more reassurance than you initially anticipated, or perhaps you discover that part of the issue stems from a misunderstanding that can be quickly resolved. Flexibility allows you to pivot gracefully and ensures that the conversation remains productive, even when unexpected twists arise. Something else worth mentioning is the value of self-awareness during difficult discussion. Before you even walk into the room, take a moment to reflect on your own emotions and motivations. Are you coming from a place of genuine concern, or are you letting pride, anger, or insecurity drive the conversation? Being honest with yourself about your intentions can prevent unnecessary conflict and ensure that your words align with your true goals. Self-awareness also helps you recognize when you might be projecting your own frustrations onto the other person. By taking responsibility for your feelings and reactions, you set the stage for a more constructive dialogue. Now let's talk about accountability, a concept that plays a crucial role in resolving conflicts effectively. Accountability doesn't mean placing all the blame on one side. It means acknowledging your part in the situation, no matter how small. When you admit your mistakes or acknowledge areas where you could have done better, you show humility and integrity. This act alone can disarm defensiveness and encourage the other person to follow suit. For example, if you're discussing a missed deadline with a teammate, you might say, "I realize I didn't communicate my expectations clearly enough, and that may have contributed to the delay." Moving forward, I'll make sure we're both on the same page. Owning your piece of the puzzle paves the way for mutual understanding and growth. Another key element in navigating tough conversations is patience. Patience doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or allowing harmful behaviors to continue unchecked. Rather, it means giving the process and the people involved the time they need to reach a meaningful resolution. Some issues can't be fixed in a single conversation, and that's perfectly okay. What matters is that you're committed to working through them step by step, even if progress feels slow. Remember, relationships aren't built overnight, and neither are repairs. By practicing patience, you demonstrate that you value the connection more than the immediate outcome. Speaking of relationships, let's not forget the importance of trust. Trust is the foundation of any strong relationship, whether personal or professional, and difficult conversations test that trust in profound ways. How you handle these moments can either strengthen or weaken the bond you share with the other person. To build trust, prioritize transparency. Share your thoughts honestly, but with sensitivity. Avoid manipulative tactics or hidden agendas, as they only erode trust over time. When people know they can count on you to be straightforward yet compassionate, they're more likely to engage in open and authentic dialogue. One common pitfall in challenging conversations is the tendency to personalize the issue. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "They're doing this to me," or "this is happening because of me." In reality, most conflicts aren't about individuals. They're about circumstances, misunderstandings, or differences in perspective. By depersonalizing the situation, you remove unnecessary emotional weight and free yourself to focus on the actual problem. For instance, instead of interpreting a coworker's curt email as a personal attack, consider external factors like stress, workload, or miscommunication that might have influenced their tone. Shifting your mindset in this way reduces defensiveness and fosters a more objective approach to problem solving. Another strategy that can work wonders is using positive reinforcement throughout the conversation. People respond better to encouragement than criticism, so whenever possible, highlight what's going well alongside addressing the challenges. For example, if you're discussing performance issues with an employee, start by acknowledging their strengths and contributions. Say something like, "Your creativity has brought so much value to the team, and I truly appreciate your dedication. At the same time, I've noticed some areas where we can refine processes to ensure consistency." This balanced approach reassures the other person that you see their potential and are invested in their success, which makes them more receptive to feedback. Let's also touch on the significance of setting boundaries in difficult conversation. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're guidelines that protect the health and integrity of the relationship. Without clear boundaries, discussions can veer off track, devolving into arguments or hurtful exchanges. Establishing boundaries beforehand ensures that both parties feel safe and respected. For instance, agree to avoid name-calling, interrupting, or bringing up past grievances unrelated to the current issue. When boundaries are respected, the conversation becomes a space for healing and resolution, rather than hostility. A related point is the importance of knowing when to take a break. Not every difficult conversation can or should be resolved in one sitting. If tensions rise too high or emotions become overwhelming, it's perfectly acceptable to pause and revisit the discussion later. Taking a step back allows everyone to cool down, gather their thoughts, and return with a fresh perspective. Just be sure to communicate your intention clearly. You might say, "I think we both need a little time to process this. Let's reconvene tomorrow and continue the conversation then." This approach shows that you're committed to finding a solution without sacrificing mutual respect. As you navigate these conversations, remember that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Opening up about your feelings, concerns, or uncertainties takes courage, but it also fosters deeper connections. When you share your truth authentically, you give the other person permission to do the same. Vulnerability breaks down walls and creates opportunities for genuine understanding. Of course, being vulnerable doesn't mean oversharing or dumping your emotions indiscriminately. It means sharing thoughtfully and intentionally, with the goal of building trust and fostering collaboration. One final aspect to consider is the long-term impact of how you handle difficult conversations. Every interaction leaves an impression, and the way you conduct yourself during challenging moments shapes how others perceive you. Do you want to be remembered as someone who handles conflict with grace and empathy, or as someone who reacts impulsively and defensively? The choices you make in these situations ripple outward, influencing not only the immediate outcome, but also the quality of your relationships moving forward. By consistently approaching tough discussions with care and consideration, you cultivate a reputation as a thoughtful and trustworthy communicator. With all of these strategies in mind, it's worth noting that practice makes perfect. Handling difficult conversations gracefully isn't something you master overnight. It's a skill that develops over time with experience and reflection. Each conversation you navigate successfully adds to your confidence and competence. And even when things don't go as planned, view those moments as learning opportunities. Ask yourself, what worked, what didn't, how can I improve next time? Continuous improvement is the hallmark of effective communication. Let's dive a little deeper into the idea of kindness and how it plays such a vital role in navigating tough conversations. Kindness isn't just a soft skill. It's a powerful tool that can transform even the most challenging interaction. When you lead with kindness, you're not ignoring the seriousness of the situation, or pretending everything is fine when it's not. Instead, you're choosing to communicate in a way that honors the humanity of the other person. You're recognizing that behind every disagreement, frustration, or misunderstanding is a human being with their own fears, hopes, and insecurities. And when you approach them with gentleness and care, you create space for healing rather than harm. Kindness also helps you stay grounded during emotionally charged moments. It acts as an anchor, reminding you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Think about it. When someone says something that triggers you, your first instinct might be to lash out or defend yourself fiercely. But what if you paused for just a second and asked yourself, how would I want to be treated in this moment? Chances are, you'd prefer to be met with understanding rather than hostility. By extending that same courtesy to others, you set a tone of mutual respect that can diffuse tension almost instantly. Even if the conversation remains difficult, the underlying kindness ensures that it doesn't devolve into unnecessary conflict. Another aspect of kindness is its ability to foster empathy. Empathy, simply put, is the practice of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It sounds simple enough, but it's incredibly powerful when applied consistently. For example, imagine you're talking to a friend who has been distant lately. Your initial reaction might be to feel hurt or angry, wondering why they haven't made time for you. But before jumping to conclusions, take a step back and consider what might be going on in their life. Are they overwhelmed with work, struggling with personal challenge? Sometimes what feels like neglect is actually just a reflection of the other person's circumstances, not a deliberate slight against you. Approaching the conversation with empathy allows you to address the issue without making assumptions or jumping to conclusions. Empathy also encourages active listening, which is another cornerstone of handling difficult conversations gracefully. Active listening means fully engaging with the other person's words, not just hearing them, but truly absorbing and reflecting on what they're saying. This requires focus and intentionality, especially in high-stakes discussions where emotions run high. To practice active listening, Resist the urge to interrupt or formulate your response while the other person is still speaking. Instead, give them your full attention. Nod occasionally to show you're following along, and use verbal cues like "I see" or "that makes sense" to acknowledge their points. Once they've finished sharing, summarize what you heard to confirm your understanding. Something as simple as saying, "So what I'm hearing is that you feel frustrated because," can go a long way in showing the other person that you value their perspective. Now let's talk about the role of patience in active listening and empathy. Patience is one of those qualities that seems easy in theory, but can be incredibly hard to practice in the heat of the moment. When someone is expressing themselves, especially if they're upset or emotional, it's natural to want to jump in and offer solutions or reassurance right away. But sometimes, people don't need advice, they need to be heard. They need to know that their feelings are valid, and that someone is willing to sit with them in their discomfort without rushing to fix things. Patience gives you the ability to hold space for the other person, allowing them to process their thoughts and emotions at their own pace. Over time, this builds trust and strengthens your connection. Of course, patience extends beyond the conversation itself. As mentioned earlier, some issues require multiple discussions to resolve fully. In these cases, patience becomes even more critical. It's tempting to push for immediate answers or quick fixes, especially when the topic feels urgent or important. However, forcing a resolution too soon can lead to superficial agreements that don't address the root cause of the problem. Instead, embrace the process and recognize that meaningful change takes time. Be patient with yourself too. Handling difficult conversations gracefully is a skill that develops over time, and it's okay to stumble along the way. Each experience teaches you something new about how to navigate future challenges more effectively. While patience and empathy are essential, so is assertiveness. Assertiveness doesn't mean being aggressive or domineering. It means standing up for your needs and boundaries in a respectful and clear manner. Many people struggle with assertiveness because they fear it will come across as confrontational or unkind. The truth is, assertiveness is actually a form of kindness to yourself. It communicates that you value your own well-being and expect others to do the same. For instance, if a colleague consistently interrupts you during meetings, you might say, "I notice I get cut off sometimes, and it makes it hard for me to share my ideas. Can we work together to ensure everyone gets a chance to speak?" This statement is direct yet polite, setting a boundary without attacking the other person. Assertiveness also involves using I statements rather than you statements. You statements tend to sound accusatory and can put the other person on the defense. For example, saying "you never listen to me" immediately raises hackles and invites resistance. On the other hand, saying "I feel unheard when I try to express my thoughts" shifts the focus to your experience rather than assigning blame. This subtle difference can dramatically alter the tone of the conversation, making it easier for the other person to engage constructively. Another key element of assertiveness is consistency. If you set a boundary or make a request, follow through on. Consistency reinforces your message and demonstrates that you're serious about your needs. For example, if you've asked a family member to stop borrowing your belongings without permission, gently remind them each time they slip up. Over time, this repetition will help them internalize the boundary and adjust their behavior accordingly. Consistency also applies to your overall communication style. If you aim to handle difficult conversations with grace and empathy, strive to embody those values consistently, not just in high-pressure moments, but in everyday interactions as well. Now let's explore the power of gratitude in navigating tough conversations. Gratitude might seem like an odd concept to bring into discussions about conflict, but it's surprisingly effective. Expressing gratitude shifts the focus from what's wrong to what's right, creating a more positive and collaborative atmosphere. For example, if you're addressing a recurring issue with a teammate, Start by thanking them for their efforts and contributions. You might say, "I really appreciate all the hard work you've put into this project. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and I know how much time and energy you've invested." This acknowledgement sets a constructive tone and makes the other person more receptive to feedback. Gratitude also helps you maintain perspective during challenging moments. When you're caught up in the heat of a disagreement, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. Taking a moment to reflect on what you're grateful for, whether it's the relationship itself, the opportunity to resolve the issue, or simply the fact that you're both committed to finding a solution, can help you regain clarity and composure. Gratitude reminds you that, despite the current difficulty, there's still plenty to value and protect. Finally, let's touch on the importance of self-care in handling difficult conversations. Engaging in tough discussions can be emotionally draining, and if you're not taking care of yourself, it's easy to become overwhelmed or reactive. Self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Before entering a challenging conversation, take a few minutes to center yourself. Practice deep breathing, meditate briefly, or write down your thoughts to organize your mind. These small rituals can help you approach the discussion with greater calm and confidence. After the conversation, give yourself permission to decompress. Reflect on how it went, celebrate any progress you made, and identify areas for improvement. If the interaction left you feeling unsettled, find healthy ways to process your emotions. Talk to a trusted friend, journal about your experience, or engage in activities that bring you joy and relaxation. Prioritizing self-care ensures that you have the emotional resilience to handle future challenges with grace and poise. As you continue to refine your skills in navigating difficult conversations, remember that growth is a journey, not a destination. Every interaction presents an opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve. The strategies we've discussed, timing, clarity, empathy, assertiveness, gratitude, and self-care, are tools you can draw upon in countless situations. With practice, they'll become second nature, empowering you to face even the toughest discussions with confidence and compassion. There's one last piece of advice I'd like to leave you with, and it's this: always lead with kindness. Kindness doesn't mean avoiding hard truths or sugarcoating reality. It means delivering your message with compassion and respect. When you approach others with kindness, you create an environment where difficult conversations can unfold constructively. People are more likely to lower their guard, open their hearts, and work towards solutions when they feel valued and understood. Kindness is the thread that ties all the other principles together, turning potentially explosive situations into opportunities for growth and connection. Handling difficult conversations gracefully isn't just about resolving conflicts, it's about building stronger relationships, fostering trust, and growing as a communicator. By leading with kindness, practicing empathy, staying patient, and being assertive when needed, you can transform even the toughest discussions into opportunities for connection and growth. Remember, every interaction leaves an impression. Choose to leave one that reflects compassion, respect, and understanding. With practice and reflection, these strategies will become second nature, empowering you to navigate life's challenges with confidence and